Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Sophie and in today's video we're going to be doing a reading vlog where I read some booktube or BookTok hyped books. So before I get into the video, please remember to like this video if you enjoy it and subscribe to my channel for more bookish content. I primarily read fantasy, thriller and romance books and I post videos every Sunday. So as I've said, I'm going to be reading some books that have been really hyped up on TikTok or BookTok and all the girlies are reading them and I have FOMO, I'm missing out and I want to know what all the hype is about. So the first one and the only one that I own physically is Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh. This is the first book in the Boys of Tommen series. Everyone has been reading this series. I've had it recommended to me by both of my sister-in-laws as well, so I really want to get to this one and see what all the hype is about. And then the next three I have on Kindle. So the first one is Bound by Sable Sorensen. This is, I believe, a debut like fantasy romance novel. Only the first book is out so far, but the second book comes out relatively soon, so I'm really excited to see what I think of this one. So the next one is Spark of the Everflame by, I believe, Penn. I'll put a picture of the cover here. Everyone's been reading this one. I know the first three books are currently out and I think the fourth one comes out soon-ish, so I can just basically binge this in one go. And then the final one is the Legends of Thesma series by Helen Scheuerer, I think is how you pronounce her name, and the first book in this series is Blood and Steel. So those are the four books I'm going to be reading for this reading vlog, so let's dive in and see what I think of them. Hey guys, so I have read the first book for this reading vlog, which is Bound by Sable Sorensen. So in this one we follow our main character Merrin, and she has a mother who is quite ill and a younger sister, and they live in essentially the poor part of this kingdom, and this kingdom is split into like different segments. So I don't know if it's different kingdoms that make up one big kingdom, I'm not really sure. They all have different names. She has a boyfriend, I guess, called Lee, and her family are really struggling for money. She does like fights for money and she's like really good at what she does. And there's a opposition kingdom. There's a kingdom that they're at war with and they're not human. They are a race called the Siphons, and they essentially like drain humans for their blood to get their power, and that's how they survive. The humans and the Siphons have been at war for years and years, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. One side will take ground and then the other side takes ground, so they're just kind of like, it's a bit of a stalemate really. And then in this world there are things called direwolves who bond with human soldiers and they go into battle together. So the bonding trials happen every few years and no one knows when they're going to happen. Merrin's sister gets kidnapped and there's something called the Nabbers, who they believe are the Siphons coming to steal the children. Merrin's sister is taken and Merrin decides that the best way to get her sister back would be to enlist in the army and go to the front lines, to go to this neighbouring kingdom and get her sister back. She has like an exemption because she is a carer for her mother, so that's why she's never been called up before, because everyone has to basically enlist, and she signs up and then finds out that she will be partaking in these bonding trials that she never knew was going to happen. No one knows when they're going to happen, and she doesn't want to bond with a direwolf. She just wants to survive the trials and just become a normal soldier and go to the front lines. And she has to do this trial where essentially they have to like climb this mountain to the top where all the direwolves are, and if they don't make it to the top then they fail. So she makes some friends along the way, and these two girls from a noble family, they're twins, they help Merrin up, and she gets to the top hoping to be like last and not bond with a wolf, and she ends up bonding with a wolf. Now it's a very like tenuous bond because she doesn't want to bond, and you're only supposed to be able to bond if you want the bond, so it's a bit of a weird situation. And it's a wolf that's never bonded before, hasn't bonded for like hundreds of years, and she's like really old, really well respected in the direwolf community. This book is them learning to like bond with each other, learning to work together, Merrin learning skills to become a soldier, and then also what's going on in this world essentially. So it's a fantasy romance book. It's a first book in a series. The second one I believe comes out in about May time, and I really enjoyed this one actually. I gave this a 4-star rating. It was a 4.5, but for me there was just a few bits that I kind of got a bit annoyed at. So for me there was way too much like smut in this. Now don't get me wrong, I love romance, I love a good smutty scene, like it's not that. It just felt like there was just too much and it was all kind of like very samey, and I just think when you've read this scene like 7 times I just got a bit bored of it, and I just kind of thought like, can we like not can we just not read this? Like if you want them to be intimate that's fine, but can we like, we don't need to read every single time. Maybe we could just have a few like fade to blacks, because I just don't really feel like it added much to the plot at that point. The first few, yeah, I guess it kind of did, but you know, like I said, when you're on like the 7th one it was just kind of like, I'm just a bit bored of it now. Meryn has, like I said, Meryn's love interest Lee more develops with that, and then she also, you know, there's like a dark, broody, strong man who's the alpha of one of the packs. There's like, yeah, there's like the whole wolf pack system. So you have like alphas, betas, gammas, things like that. So that's all something that Meryn has to learn, and we learn along with her. We learn about like the politics of this kingdom. We learn a little bit about the siphons as well. And I think this was a really good first book in a series. Like, it was really strong. I really enjoyed the fantastical aspects of it. I don't think it's anything like revolutionarily new in this genre, but I did have a really good time with it, and that's kind of what I'm looking for nowadays. I'm not really looking for anything new, because I mean, is there really such an idea of an original concept nowadays? You know, it was very Game of Thrones inspired in like the dire wolves, and even like, you know, one of the guys is called Stark, and I just think a lot of the names were very similar to like Game of Thrones characters' names, just slightly different. So I definitely see where this author got her inspiration from. There's no denying that. She could have done a little bit to make it a little bit different. So for that, it's not a 5-star, because I was just kind of like, it did make me chuckle a bit and took me out the story a little bit, but I did really enjoy it. And 4-star is still a fantastic rating. And I will say, like, for, I think this is a debut book as well. For a debut fantasy book, this was incredible, and I think that this world is really interesting. I'm really excited to read the second book when that one comes out. I think we're going to really expand upon this world and also the history of this world, like the revelations that we had near the end, and Meryn learning about her history and what's going on in this world with the siphons and all that. There was a lot going on, like, everywhere in all aspects, like with the dire wolves, with the war, with Meryn's family and her, like, you know, her history and the kingdom's history. It was really interesting, and I'm excited to see essentially it expand and we learn a lot more about what's going on. I'm also excited to learn more about the wolf aspect. I will say there was one thing that was revealed which I thought was pretty obvious, and I don't know if it was supposed to be pretty obvious, but like Meryn was so shocked by it, and I was like, girl, I worked this out like 300 pages ago, why are you so shocked? She was a little bit irritating sometimes. Like, no, I didn't find her irritating, but there was some of the things that she did, I was kind of like, oh, come on, girl. But you know, she has a lot on her plate at the moment, so I will let her off. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I think if you're looking for a fun fantasy, this is definitely going to be a good pick. And like I said, the second book comes out pretty soon, so you don't have too long to wait, and I'm really glad I picked this one up. It definitely deserves the hype that it's getting, and yeah, I just thought it was really fun. Really, it was really interesting. I'm really intrigued by the magic system, how everything is going to expand and open up even more. I'm just really excited to read the next one. So that's it for the first book for this reading vlog. But yeah, 4 stars for this one. Really good. And on to the next book for this reading vlog. I have now read the next book for this reading vlog, which is Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh. This is the first book in the Boys of Tommen series, and in this one we follow Johnny and Shannon. Johnny is a rugby player at Tommen College, and he is the best of the best. He's going to be trying out for the under-20s Irish team. Johnny is 17, and then we have Shannon, who is 15 at the beginning of this book, and then she turns 16 throughout this book, and she moves to Tommen College. She comes from a very poor family, and she was bullied relentlessly at her old school, so much so that essentially police had to get involved and things like that. And she moves to Tommen College because her mum can't cope with her being bullied anymore, and her brother nearly got expelled trying to protect her, so they move her to Tommen College hoping for a fresh start. And at the very beginning of this book, Johnny accidentally hits Shannon with a rugby ball, completely accidentally. She's cutting across the field and he throws the ball and it accidentally hits her. She ends up with a concussion, and that's how they meet. And then after that, he can't stay away from her, even though she's obviously a couple of years younger. She's also going through a lot. We find out very early on that she is being abused at home by her father, and essentially is made to do all the housework, do all the chores, look after her entire family. This is basically Johnny and Shannon coming together, being there for one another, and forming a friendship really in this book. So this is 700, nearly 800 pages, and I have to say, really not a lot happens relationship wise with them. So like I said, they meet, and then we have just hundreds and hundreds of pages of them interacting, forming a friendship, and Johnny trying to figure out what is going on with Shannon, as obviously he can see the bruises on her neck and things like that, and she won't tell him what's going on. I gave this one a 4-star rating, so I did really enjoy this one. I'm not sure if this is a book for everyone really. I know this is a really popular series, but I can see why some people don't like it, because like I said, not a lot really happens in this book. Like, it's 800 pages before they even really kiss. Like, they kiss once really, and that's kind of it. So it's a very, very slow romance, and I kind of understand why, because obviously the ages that our characters are, and there's a lot of heavy topics going on in here. So even though they are like 16 and 17, this is definitely not a book for like children, teenagers. This is an adult book, you know. I did personally really enjoy it. I do think it is very long, and I'm interested to see like what happens in the next book, which is Keeping 13. Are they going to progress the relationship a bit more, and what's going to happen with like Johnny with his rugby, and with Shannon with her family, and that whole situation. I think that the characters in here were really interesting. I'm interested to follow some of the other characters from the rugby team in further books. I think that if we get a book from Joey's perspective, which is Shannon's brother, obviously he's dealing with all this as well, I think that would be really interesting to read and just kind of see it from another perspective. But I did really enjoy this one, and I'm really excited to carry on with this series. My only gripe with it is it's quite repetitive. So Johnny is a big rugby player. He's like 6 foot something, and Shannon is a very small girl for her age, and I feel like every other page we are reminded of how small Shannon is. And I think like when we're sort of 50 pages in and we've been told like so many times that Shannon is a very small girl, we don't need it reiterated like 100 times in this book. It got a bit much, like even at the end when they're like, oh, I'm so small, I'm like, yeah, we know you're tiny, you don't need to keep telling us, like we haven't forgotten. It's maybe 800 pages, but Lord, if I could forget that, like so yeah, that was kind of like my only gripe, and I think that it was just quite slow, and I understand why. I did really enjoy it still. Like I said, a 4-star rating is still really good rating. I just don't think this book is for everyone, so I'm definitely going to carry on with this series. I'm very intrigued as to what happens next, as the book left on a quite the cliffhanger and quite an explosive ending, so I'm interested to see what happens next. And I'm definitely really interested in Johnny and Shannon's story. It did take me a while to read this book because I was kind of like dipping in and out of it because it was so slow and like not a lot really happened in this book. I don't think it would be for everyone, but I personally really enjoyed it for what it was. And yeah, I can't believe I'm saying like, oh my god, like a romance book doesn't need to be over 500 pages, but this isn't really a romance book. I don't know what to classify this series as, to be honest with you. Like it's not romance. Is it like, I don't know what to classify this as. It's like nothing romantic happens in here. There is none. There is no romance. So yeah, really enjoyed this one. I'm glad I finally read it because I was so interested in this book and this series for a long time, and I'm excited to carry on with this series. So I have now read the next book for this reading vlog, which is Spark of the Everflame by Penn. This is the first book in the Kindred's Curse series, and I gave this one a 3.5-star rating. Now I don't seem to have enjoyed this book as much as everyone else, but I did still enjoy it. So for me, I feel like this book felt very like a setup book. We were laying the foundations for the rest of the series, and it kind of didn't feel like it was a story on its own. And I know obviously first books in series are primarily a setup for the rest of the series, but it kind of felt like a prequel novella to the rest of the series. I don't know if I'm explaining it correct, sort of how I'm meaning it, but I feel like not a lot in this really happened, but we had things happen that would spark, if you pardon the pun, it would spark the rest of the plot for the rest of the series. So I did really enjoy it. I just don't really feel like a lot happened, and it was a quick read. It wasn't boring or anything like that, which is why I've given it 3.5-star rating. It's still a good rating. It's just not like a 4-star, 5-star read for me. It just felt too set-up-y and not a lot really happened. I also found our characters, I didn't love them, and I feel like this really could have been, I think some work needed to be done on the writing for me personally. So this is supposed to be like an enemies to lovers, like slow burn romance, and I know who the romance is going to be between, but I just don't really see it. So in the very beginning of this book, our main character DM, her mother vanishes, and in this world we have mortals and we have descended, who are like half mortal, half god. They're like a weird mix. They live very separate lives. Like the descended are very rich and they live in luxury, and the mortals often struggle to make ends meet. DM is a healer and so is her mother, and I think the twist on who DM is for me was very obvious, and I don't know if it was intended to be obvious, but I saw right through it. And essentially DM's mother gets herself caught up in a bargain with the prince of this kingdom. They don't know if DM's mother is dead or alive or what, but DM decides to investigate what's going on, because it seems like people have kind of, it's been 6 months and everyone's kind of given up. She decides to investigate and finds herself in the palace as a healer. We just kind of like, the plot sort of goes from there, and we have 2 love interests. I say that loosely. So we have her childhood best friend Henry, and then we have the prince, and I personally don't see the romance between her and the prince. If this is a slow burn romance between the two of them, it was slow burn, and then it almost kind of like, it was slow, and then it's like boom, like, and I'm just kind of like, I don't really know if I'm articulating my feelings on this very well, but it felt a bit messy. Every aspect of this felt a bit messy, but I can see that it has potential. So I'm definitely going to carry on with this series because, like I said, I like where the story went and I'm interested to see where this goes. I thought the world was really interesting. It was a pretty basic concept, so there wasn't really too much world building that we had, or I don't really know if there's any more world building to be done, but it was a very simple concept, pretty standard like fantasy romance for me. I don't think this did anything special for the genre. Because of how messy I feel like the first book was, I don't feel like I can give it a higher rating than 3.5. But I am going to carry on with this series because I'm interested in where this is going to go, and I think this has a lot of potential. I just think this first book was a bit of a mess, and I don't know if it's like the author's debut or if it's self-published or whatever, but I just think it was a bit of a mess. But I did like it. I didn't love our characters, to be quite honest with you. So DM, I found her to be quite whiny and naive, and I guess she's supposed to be like a Selena character from Throne of Glass, where she just kind of like doesn't care what people think of her, has no thought for the consequences. But the way that it was done, I just thought like she just like was cocky, and I didn't like it. One example is that she's in the palace, you know, doing her job as a healer, and she says that she's left her satchel, she's going to go and get it, and the prince is like, oh no, I have one of the guards go and get it, and then she kind of like back talks him a lot and then just like runs off and causes all this trouble, and then she's like, well, why is everyone shooting at me, and what? It's like, because you've like run off, like they think you're an assassin or something, like you've just run off in the palace with no guard, and they don't really know who you are really. So just kind of like I just didn't love her as a character. I didn't like Henry either, but I think you're not really supposed to like him. And the whole aspect with like the rebellion as well, I thought that was interesting, but I didn't like how DM really flipped and flopped back and forth with her opinions on everything. I think again she just didn't really have much of a backbone, and she was quite whiny and naive, and yeah, I think, like I said, like I didn't love her, but I'm still interested in this series. It's not a priority for me to read, but I definitely will pick it up because they are all on Kindle Unlimited, so they're easily accessible for me, and I did enjoy it. It was kind of like, I don't really feel too invested in this, so it's a bit low stakes, and yeah, it was good. 3.5 star rating I think is a fair rating for all the reasons that I have said. Yeah, I will carry on with this series, but not anytime soon, I don't think. So yeah, that is that for Spark of the Everflame. I have read the final book for this reading vlog, which is Blood and Steel by Helen Scheuerer. This is the first book in the Legends of Thesmar series, and I gave this one a 4-star rating. I really enjoyed this one. In this one we follow two main characters, Wilder Hawthorne and Althea. They live in Thesmar, and essentially like 3 kingdoms that are all working together, and there is I think like 20 years or so prior to the start of this book, a prophecy was foretold that a woman wielding a blade would essentially cause the downfall of all the kingdoms, and so since then women have been banned from the army and wielding blades. They're not allowed to possess any weapons. This meant that a lot of women warriors were kicked out of the army, and ever since no woman has been allowed to wield a blade. Now all Althea wants to do is to become a war sword, which is what Hawthorne is. There's now only 3 war swords in this entire like kingdom. She watches the Guardians train, and that's all she wants to do is fight for her kingdom. And essentially something happens that allows her to go to petition the king to allow women to wield blades, or to let her be a guardian. And at first the king says no, that you know, no women can wield a blade no matter their circumstances or what's happened, and then she actually ends up saving the king's life, and he grants her a boon, and essentially she asks to be allowed to train to be a warrior, and he grants her this boon, and therefore we follow her as she starts warrior training, and she has to pass this trial to become a guardian, and then I guess the rest of the books will follow after. She has a sort of begrudging friendship with Hawthorne, who is this war sword. He's the youngest war sword ever. He's very powerful. The war swords are the only people that can kill these creatures that are like invading the land. Now there's something called the veil which gets breached and like opens up, and then these creatures like come in. Hawthorne fights them off. There's obviously fewer war swords now. There's now only 3. The army is really struggling for recruits and things like that, and really what would solve this problem is let the women back in, but there we go. Thea is still the only woman allowed to train, and we follow her through her training as she navigates this world that she's now allowed to sort of be in, their relationship, their friendship. I'm really sorry if you can hear screaming. There's like screaming children outside. And yeah, as she navigates this world and as we explore this world as well. So I really enjoyed this one. I enjoyed this one a lot more than I was expecting to. too. I find a lot of the times with like fantasy books that are recommended on TikTok that they're not always very good, but this reading vlog has actually really surprised me with how much I've enjoyed every single one of these books. I think I had a bit of a bad spate of not enjoying TikTok recommendations, but these ones were actually really good, and I really enjoyed this one. I'm really interested to carry on this series and see where we go, where our characters go. It wasn't just like Althea and Hawthorne that were really interesting to me. I really enjoyed the side characters like Thea's sister, the friends that she made at the academy, what happened there with like enemies that she also made, and how the king is showing an interest in her training. I thought the writing was really good as well. It was really compelling, really easy to understand, but also like doing justice to this world, and I think this world's really interesting as well, and I think we're going to explore more and more of this world as Thea explores more and more of this world. Obviously she's lived kind of like a sheltered life being a woman. She's not allowed to wield a blade, so you're not allowed to leave, but they sort of try and encourage you to stay in this kingdom for your safety. So as I guess Thea will eventually become a warrior and continue her training, that she will explore more of this world as well. I thought that the whole like political system was really interesting, and I'm interested to explore more of that as well. I thought the king was a really interesting character, and how he was so interested in Thea and what was going on with her. I think that the two main characters are both really interesting as well. You've got Hawthorne, who is a, you know, legend in his own right, and then you've got Thea, who's learning everything. So you kind of have like two sides of this, and then you follow like the political side of it as well. I just thought it was really good, and there's 4 books. They're all on Kindle Unlimited, so that's where I'll be getting them from. And I think there's like a sequel series as well. I've not really looked too much into that because I don't want to be spoiled, but I'm really interested to continue this series. Definitely my priority to carry on with these series early this year. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. Of the fantasy that I read for this vlog, I think Direbound was my favourite, followed by Blood and Steel, and then Spark of the Everflame. I think Spark of the Everflame has a lot of setup, and I think we're going to expand on that in the next book, but Blood and Steel I thought was really good in its own right. I loved the training aspect. I just really enjoyed a lot about this book, and this was a really good surprise, and I'm really glad that I read it, and now I've got loads more books by this author to read. So that is the end of this reading vlog, where I've read some TikTok and BookTok hyped books. Please comment down below if you've read any of these books. I'd love to hear your guys' opinion. Please remember to like this video if you enjoy it, subscribe to my channel for more bookish content, and I'll see you in the next one, guys. Bye.